Mighty 790 KFGO. We're having some fun here in the studio. Is that camera on you too, or are you dancing around that because you know you're not on camera?
That's for me to know and you to find out.
Boy, I don't want to find out. If you would like to check out any of our material, we're on our own YouTube page with Midwest Communications, right?
Yep, we sure are.
Midwest Communications YouTube page. Polly is recording this on video right now, and I apologize for anything you might see on the screen there ahead of time. And then podcast, we're already up podcasting with Lieutenant Sable Brown from the last half hour from NORAD, right?
Yep, we sure are.
And we're going to do the same thing with Colonel Nick Gengler here in just a couple of moments with the South Dakota Civil Air Patrol. And those podcasts can be found at kfgo.com. KFGO.com, just click on podcasts and go to the drive, and you'll see, does everything you've ever podcast stay up on that?
It stays up there till somebody takes it down.
Boy, and I can't believe there's not people clamoring to take that stuff down. But we've had some really great interviews, no kidding, over the last several months, and some of them are fascinating, and they're all out there, including talking to NORAD just a few moments ago. Well, this caught my eye yesterday when the KFGO newsroom was covering this story. I thought it was just super cool that this was going on. It turns out the South Dakota wing of the Civil Air Patrol is assisting the State Department of Health in delivering the first allocation of coronavirus vaccines. The Civil Air Patrol said it's flying the vaccine to smaller communities in South Dakota with its fleet of single-engine Cessna aircraft flown by volunteer pilots and crews. And I wanted to find out more about this, so I have found Colonel Nick Gengler of the South Dakota Civil Air Patrol today, and he's been most kind to join us here this afternoon. Colonel Nick Gengler, welcome to KFGO, sir.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
It's absolutely our pleasure. Colonel Gengler, let me find out a little bit about you. How'd you get where you're at?
Sure. So I joined Civil Air Patrol 20 years ago as a teenager. CAP has a youth program as well. And over the years, I worked through that, and it was in a variety of different roles of unit commanders and operations, and eventually got to what we call a wing commander. And so I'm in charge of all Civil Air Patrol operations in our state, as well as all the units in South Dakota.
So you are you're the wing commander, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, the wing commander, yep.
I got it. Well, that's very cool. What is your job as wing commander, Colonel?
Sure. So, yeah, I oversee just about everything. You know, we have several units in our state, and all the states across the U.S. Have their own wing commanders and their own units that they're in charge of. And so my job is to make sure our units are doing what they're supposed to do. They're meeting, our operations are happening, our aircraft fleet is taken care of, our vehicles are taken care of, and our people are progressing through the program, and we're a volunteer service for the community.
Well, I think what you're doing is just amazing. Just for everybody's sake of being all on the same page, can you give us like the one-page answer of when someone asks you, what is the Civil Air Patrol?
Sure. So we're a nonprofit organization, but at the same time, we also fall underneath the Air Force. We're auxiliary of the Air Force, right? So it depends on what mission we're doing that day. But as a nonprofit, we're all volunteers. None of us get paid. As I said before, there's a youth component organization part of us that allows cadets or teenagers to kind of grow through the program, kind of like a junior ROTC almost, where they get rank and they learn about leadership and followership. And we put them in roles. We put them in charge of people and in charge of events, and we let them grow. And then once they get to 21, we get them into bigger roles, and we get them in charge of a fleet of vans maybe, or some aircraft, or an entire unit of people, or bigger events. And we're really training people to just help out their communities, grow themselves individually as well as professionally.
So you may have already answered this with that answer right there, but Colonel, who flies? Who's your pilots?
Sure. So one of our missions of Civil Air Patrol, we have three missions. So we have the aerospace education, which is part of our cadet program. We have our emergency services, which is kind of where the pilots come into play as well. So the pilots are in the aerospace education, the emergency services, and our cadet program. So everything's really tied together. So who flies is just about anyone with a pilot's license. Now, we have a few more levels of requirements. You know, yes, you may have your private pilots or your commercial, but, you know, we fall under the Air Force. We have a little bit more requirements you have to do. And once you get those requirements done, then, yeah, you're authorized to fly with us and our aircraft.
So the people who volunteer, the young men, young women who are piloting your aircraft, are they hopeful one day to be military pilots? Is that what they'd like to do?
Some of them, yeah. Yep. We're not all about flying. A lot of us do like to fly, but we just definitely have a lot of people that like to stay on the ground and do a lot of mission work and helping out in the communities on the ground as well. So, yeah, we do have paths for people to go into the military if that's the path they want to choose. We work closely with all the military branches and a lot of opportunities in those directions if people want to take that.
Where are you based out of in South Dakota, Colonel?
Sure. So I live in the Beersford area, right? So that's over by Sioux Falls.
Okay.
That's where I live. But again, I have a day job. The CAP is not my day job. We're all volunteers. None of us get paid, so we're all spread across throughout the whole state.
Well, which makes what you're doing even more fascinating. So the United States and drug companies announced they're ready to deliver this vaccine, and now all of a sudden the South Dakota Civil Air Patrol has volunteered to bring in this cargo into smaller South Dakota cities through the Department of Health. Can you tell us how that happened? How did you get to volunteer with the South Dakota Department of Health?
Sure. So ever since the pandemic began months and months ago, Civil Air Patrol throughout the nation has stepped up and offered to work closely with the states and the Department of Health and all various agencies to deliver different equipment, masks, test kits, and that's been happening for several months now.
Okay.
What I saw coming forward about 3 or 4 weeks ago is I reached out to the Department of Health and said, hey, we want to help. We see other people helping. We want to help too. And they came back and said, hey, can you help us transport some stuff? And we said, you know what, absolutely. And we've been working closely with the Air Force and Civil Air Patrol and the Department of Health to make sure we're transporting stuff safely and it's getting to the communities that need it.
So your pilots must have had something to say about that. Your ground crews, everybody, they must have. Did you say something to them before you brought this up with the Department of Health?
Yep, absolutely. I worked with my staff. I said, hey, before we ask, let's make sure we can deliver, right? Is this something we can do? We have the resources to do? And they said, absolutely, we want to help. And so, yeah, we all stepped up.
Well, that's truly remarkable. So you've got a very tender cargo that you're moving around. We're all led to believe that this vaccine needs to be held at some ridiculously gross, cold temperature while you're flying it into smaller South Dakota towns and et cetera. And we all have to acknowledge that the colonel here is under a certain amount of restrictions. I mean, not all information is to be talked about in the open airwaves. So, Colonel, whatever you can and cannot talk about, that's up to you. But just to ask, is there any special requirements for moving this cargo?
For us, no. Usually, yeah, you can read about it in the media about how the current vaccine that's out needs special requirements, but we're not transporting with those requirements because we're transporting it in a way that is going to be used right away. And that's why we're being utilized, is because we can get it across the state in 2 hours. We can get it to the people that need it that day, and we're a quick solution and a cost-effective one for the state. Smaller
towns, smaller communities, which, North and South Dakota, that's what dots the landscape around here. Those people in those communities, when your planes come in, must be so appreciative. Your feedback has to have been just tremendous so far.
Oh, yes, very much so. We've been treated very well and a lot of praise all around every time we show up. So it's been great working with all the agencies, the Department of Health, the governor's office. It's been great. We've talked a lot about that on this show at Christmas time here especially. There's no greater feeling in the world knowing that you've helped out your fellow man in some particular way, and boy, your team must just feel so good. They should be very proud of themselves. Since you are an all-volunteer organization, etc. By the way, Colonel Nick Gengler is joining us. He's with the South Dakota Civil Air Patrol. He's the wing commander. Mechanics for your planes, fuel for your planes, upkeep, that all costs money. How do you afford that? So the Air Force helps pay for a lot of that stuff. There's a congressional budget that's publicized, and we're part of that congressional budget. We get a small chunk of that to take care of our fleet, but as well as the fuel goes, that kind of depends on the mission. Sometimes if it's a state mission, the state might pick up the bill, or if we have a federal mission, some of our missions include missing people, downed aircraft, disaster relief, and sometimes then FEMA steps in or the Air Force steps in to pick up that bill. It really depends on the mission and our customers to see who's going to be paying for what. Well, we're awful proud of the job you're doing,
Colonel. Man, this is an important job, a vital job, and you guys are volunteering to do it. Just truly remarkable. Colonel Nick Gengler with the South Dakota Civil Air Patrol. He's the wing commander, talking about the volunteer Civil Air Patrol zooming into communities across South Dakota to deliver the vaccine. How long will you keep doing this? As long as you're needed?
As long as we're needed. We'll keep working with the Department of Health, and they'll tell us where to go, and we're happy to go there.
Well, fantastic. Merry Christmas, Colonel Nick Gengler. You're doing a great thing.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me today, Colonel. I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a wonderful evening tonight.
You too.
You bet. Thanks. Take care. KFGO time is 4:53. You're listening to The Drive on the Mighty 790 KFGO.
Find the perfect gift for those on your list, especially the tough ones. Holiday savings are in full swing at Max. Get a Stanley 100